Lisa Morin woke up to the feeling of something soft and warm brushing against her face. Her eyelids fluttered open, heavy with exhaustion, as she tried to make sense of where she was. The air smelled earthy, like damp soil after a rainstorm, mixed with the faint sweetness of flowers blooming nearby. Above her, two suns hung low in the sky, casting golden light over everything they touched. She blinked several times, trying to adjust her vision, but all she could see at first was a blur of colors: green leaves swaying gently, blue skies stretching endlessly. It wasn't until she felt tiny paws pressing lightly on her cheek that Lisa fully focused. A small creature stared down at her, its wide, liquid eyes filled with both fear and hope. Its fur shimmered in shades of burnt copper under the sunlight, and its delicate ears twitched nervously as it leaned closer. "Don't leave again, please," the little being whimpered, its voice trembling yet clear, spoken in perfect English with just a hint of an unfamiliar accent. Lisa froze. Who or what was this, and why did it sound so desperate? She tried to sit up, wincing as pain shot through her body. Every muscle ached and her head throbbed painfully. Memories began flooding back in fragments. The deep-range scout vessel Orion's Whisper, the disastrous mission near the Orion Spur, the alien contact gone horribly wrong. There had been explosions, alarms blaring, and then nothing. Darkness. Until now. The cub didn't move away when Lisa shifted uncomfortably beneath him. Instead, he placed his front paws firmly on her chest, staring into her eyes as if searching for answers. "You came back," he said softly, his tone almost pleading. "I waited. I promised I'd wait." Lisa frowned, confusion swirling inside her. "Waited for me?" she asked, her voice hoarse from disuse. "How do you know me?" The cub tilted his head slightly, his expression unreadable. "You stayed before, you helped us, but then you left." His words trailed off, sadness creeping into his voice. "Please don't leave again." Lisa shook her head slowly, struggling to process what he was saying. She had no memory of ever meeting this creature, or even being here before. Yet there was something about his presence that felt oddly familiar, like a distant echo of a forgotten dream. She reached out hesitantly, running her fingers gently over his soft fur. He closed his eyes briefly, leaning into her touch, and let out a contented sigh. Before Lisa could ask more questions, the cub hopped off her chest and bounded toward the edge of the clearing. He paused there, looking back at her expectantly. "Come," he urged. "You need food, water, rest. My mother will want to meet you." "Your mother?" Lisa repeated, pushing herself awkwardly to her feet. Her legs wobbled beneath her weight, but she managed to take a few shaky steps forward. The cub watched her closely, ready to dart forward if she stumbled. "Where are we?" she asked, glancing around at the lush forest surrounding them. Towering trees stretched high above, their broad leaves forming a canopy that filtered the sunlight into dappled patterns on the ground. "This is," the cub replied simply, "our home." The name sent a shiver down Lisa's spine. It sounded vaguely familiar, though she couldn't recall why. As they walked together through the dense foliage, Lisa noticed how vibrant everything seemed. The colors were richer, the scents sharper, the sounds livelier. Birds chirped melodiously overhead, while insects buzzed lazily between flowers. Even the moss beneath her boots felt softer than anything she'd ever experienced on Earth or any other planet she'd visited during her years in space exploration. Despite the beauty around her, unease gnawed at Lisa's mind. Something wasn't right. Why couldn't she remember coming here before? What connection did she have to this place, and to this strange yet endearing cub? After what felt like hours of walking, the forest opened up into a serene grove surrounded by towering trees. In the center stood a group of beings who looked surprisingly humanoid, though their skin shimmered faintly with iridescent hues. Their eyes glowed softly, reflecting the same warmth Lisa had seen in the cub's gaze. They turned toward her as she approached, studying her silently. One of them stepped forward, a tall woman with flowing silver hair and kind features. She knelt beside the cub, placing a hand gently on his head. She said softly, addressing the cub, "Is this her?" Nodded eagerly. "Yes, mother, this is Lisa," she came back. The woman rose to her full height, fixing Lisa with a penetrating stare. "Welcome back, Captain Morin," she said, her voice carrying a quiet authority. "We've been waiting for you." Lisa's breath caught in her throat. How did they know her name? How did they know her? Before she could respond, the woman gestured toward a cluster of woven shelters nestled among the trees. "Rest now," she said. "There is much to discuss, but first you must recover your strength." Too tired to argue, Lisa allowed herself to be led to one of the shelters. Inside, she found a bed made of soft moss and blankets woven from plant fibers. Followed her, curling up beside her as she lay down. His warmth was comforting, and despite the whirlwind of unanswered questions spinning in her mind, Lisa felt a strange sense of peace wash over her. As sleep claimed her once more, his voice whispered softly in her ear, "Thank you for coming back, Lisa. I knew you would." And for reasons she couldn't explain, Lisa believed him. When Lisa woke again, sunlight streamed through the gaps in the woven walls of her shelter, painting golden patterns on the mossy floor. For a moment, she lay still, trying to piece together everything that had happened since she regained consciousness. The strange cub named, the glowing-eyed beings who called themselves, the mysterious grove hidden deep within this alien forest. None of it felt real, yet every detail was vivid in her mind. Stirred beside her, his small body rising and falling with each soft breath. He opened his eyes as if sensing her wakefulness and gazed up at her with an expression that was both hopeful and cautious. "Are you hungry?" he asked, his voice quiet but eager. Lisa nodded, though her stomach felt more like a tangled knot than anything else. She sat up carefully, testing her muscles. They still ached, but not as badly as before. With leading the way, she stepped outside into the grove. The air smelled fresh and clean, filled with the scent of blooming flowers and damp earth. Around her, the moved gracefully, tending to their daily tasks without speaking much. Some wove baskets from long strands of plant fiber, while others tended to small gardens bursting with colorful fruits and vegetables. "Come," said, pulling gently at her hand. "Mother wants to talk to you." Lisa followed him to where the silver-haired woman from the previous day stood waiting near a bubbling stream. Her presence was calming, yet there was an intensity in her gaze that made Lisa feel as though she were being studied. "Good morning, Captain Morin," the woman said warmly, though her tone carried a hint of formality. We are grateful you have returned." Lisa hesitated, unsure how to respond. "I don't understand," she admitted finally. "Why do you keep saying I've come back? I don't remember ever being here before." His expression softened. "It is understandable that your memories are fragmented. You were injured during your last visit and we did what we could to heal you. Unfortunately, some things were beyond our ability to repair." She gestured toward Lisa's head. "Your neural implant, it was damaged when you crashed. It has been interfering with your recall." Lisa reached up instinctively, touching the spot behind her ear where the implant was embedded. She remembered the device well. It had been part of her standard equipment as a scout captain, designed to enhance communication and memory retention during missions. But now it seemed to be malfunctioning, or worse, tampering with her past. "I think I can help," continued. She held out her hand, palm facing upward. A faint glow emanated from her fingertips, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. "May I?" Lisa hesitated for a moment, then nodded, placed her hand lightly against Lisa's temple. A warm sensation spread through her skull, soothing the dull ache that had lingered since she woke. Images began flashing in her mind, fragmented scenes of herself standing in this very grove years ago, surrounded by these same. She saw flashes of as a newborn cub, nestled protectively in his mother's arms. And she saw herself making promises she couldn't quite hear, vowing to return someday. The memories faded as suddenly as they had appeared, leaving Lisa breathless. What was that?" she whispered, clutching her head. "You stayed with us for many weeks after your ship crashed," explained. "You helped us understand your people, and in turn, we taught you about ours. When the time came for you to leave, you promised to come back." But her voice trailed off, sorrow flickering across her face. "We waited, and waited, until we thought perhaps you had forgotten." Lisa looked down at who watched her intently, his wide eyes brimming with emotion. "I didn't forget," she said softly, though she wasn't entirely sure if she believed her own words. "Something must have happened. My crew, they wouldn't just abandon me." Nodded slowly. "Perhaps not intentionally. Your rescue team arrived while you were unconscious. They took you away before you could awaken and say goodbye." A wave of guilt washed over Lisa. She hadn't meant to break her promise to leave and the behind, but somehow she had. No matter the circumstances, it didn't change the fact that they had waited for her, trusting that she would return. And now, seeing the pain in his eyes, she knew she owed them an explanation, and maybe even redemption. Over the next few days, Lisa immersed herself in learning about them and their way of life. They were deeply connected to the natural world around them, living in harmony with the forest and its creatures. The cubs, were especially remarkable. Though they resembled animals, they possessed extraordinary intelligence and empathy, able to sense emotions and mimic speech after spending enough time with someone. Had clearly formed a strong bond with Lisa during her earlier stay, which explained why he recognized her so quickly, and why he had begged her not to leave again. But as Lisa grew closer to she also noticed signs of trouble brewing. Strange tremors shook the ground occasionally, sending ripples through the streams and disturbing the wildlife. The trees swayed unnaturally, as if responding to some unseen force. One evening, as Lisa sat by the fire with a group of elders, she voiced her concerns. "What's causing the tremors?" she asked. "Is something wrong with the planet?" The elders exchanged worried glances. "We believe it is the work of outsiders," one of them said gravely. "A mining fleet has entered our system. They seek to exploit resources, disregarding the harm they cause." Lisa's heart sank. Mining operations often brought destruction, not only to ecosystems but also to civilizations unprepared to defend themselves. If the fleet discovered the empathic abilities of the cubs, they might see them as commodities rather than sentient beings. The thought made Lisa sick to her stomach. "We cannot fight them," another elder added sadly. "Our ways are peaceful. Violence goes against everything we stand for." Lisa clenched her fists, frustration bubbling inside her. "There has to be a way to stop them," she insisted. "If they're coming here to destroy your home, we can't just sit back and do nothing." Who had been listening quietly nearby suddenly stepped forward. "They took my mother," he said, his voice trembling but determined. "The miners came once before, years ago. They captured her and never brought her back." Lisa knelt down to meet his gaze. "I'm sorry," she said sincerely. "I won't let that happen again, not to you or anyone else here." For the first time since she arrived, smiled, a small, hesitant smile but one full of hope. "You mean it?" he asked. "I mean it," Lisa replied firmly. "This is my home now too, and I'll do whatever it takes to protect it." As the days passed, Lisa worked closely with them to prepare for the inevitable arrival of the mining fleet. They showed her secret paths through the forest, hidden caves where they could take refuge, and ancient traps designed to deter predators. In return, Lisa shared knowledge from her military training, teaching them how to use natural materials to create deterrence against intruders. Through it all, remained by her side, his trust in her growing stronger with each passing day. He told her stories of his mother, describing her bravery and kindness, and Lisa found herself feeling a deep connection to the cub. She realized that protecting wasn't just about fulfilling a promise, it was about building a new future, one where humans and aliens could coexist peacefully. But as the tremors grew more frequent and the skies darkened with distant smoke, Lisa knew the real challenge was still ahead. The mining fleet was coming, and when it arrived, she would need more than determination to stand against it. The days leading up to the mining fleet's arrival were tense. Lisa could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders like a storm cloud refusing to break. She spent every waking moment preparing with the teaching them strategies she had learned during her years as a scout captain. Though they were peaceful by nature, they listened intently, absorbing her advice and adapting it to their own ways. They didn't understand violence, but they understood survival, and that was enough for now. Stayed close to Lisa, rarely leaving her side. His presence was comforting, yet it also reminded her of the promises she had unknowingly broken. Every time he looked at her with those big, trusting eyes, she felt a pang of guilt deep in her chest. "You'll stay this time, right?" he asked one evening as they sat together near the stream, watching fireflies dance in the twilight. Lisa hesitated before answering. She wanted to tell him yes, to assure him that everything would be okay. But the truth was, she didn't know what the future held. All she could do was try her best to protect him and his people. "I'll do everything I can," she said finally, ruffling the soft fur on his head. Seemed satisfied with that answer, curling up beside her as the stars began to appear in the sky. Despite her determination, Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that they were outmatched. The mining fleet belonged to a rogue human corporation known for its ruthless tactics. They wouldn't hesitate to destroy anything, or anyone, who stood in their way. And while the knowledge of the forest gave them an advantage, Lisa knew it wouldn't be enough against advanced technology and sheer numbers. That's when she decided to reach out to someone who might still owe her a favor. Dale, an old comrade from her early days in the Navy, was running a cargo hauler near the rim these days. He wasn't exactly the most reliable guy, but he had a soft spot for underdogs, and Lisa hoped that would be enough to convince him to help. She managed to send a coded transmission using a makeshift communicator rigged from parts of her damaged neural implant and some scavenged tech. It took several attempts before she received a response, and when Dale's gruff voice crackled through the static, she almost laughed with relief. "Morin, is that you?" he asked, sounding equal parts surprised and annoyed. "What the hell are you doing out there? Last I heard, you were lost in the Orion Spur." "It's a long story," Lisa replied, keeping her tone light despite the gravity of the situation. "Look, I need your help. There's a mining fleet headed toward this planet, and if they get here, they're going to tear it apart. I'm asking you to come and lend a hand." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "You're serious about this, aren't you?" Dale said finally. "You know what kind of trouble we'd be stepping into." "I wouldn't ask if it weren't important," Lisa said firmly. "These people, they're good, Dale. They don't deserve what's coming for them." Another pause followed by a heavy sigh. "All right, fine, but don't expect me to stick around for long. If things go south, I'm out of there. Got it?" "Got it," Lisa replied, smiling faintly. "Thanks, Dale." When the transmission ended, Lisa felt a flicker of hope. Dale might not be much of a fighter, but his ship, a battered but functional freighter called the Iron Mule, could provide a distraction if nothing else. And sometimes, a distraction was all they needed to turn the tide. As the days passed, the tremors grew stronger, shaking the ground beneath their feet and sending flocks of birds fleeing into the skies. They worked tirelessly to fortify their defenses, weaving traps from vines and setting up barriers made of fallen logs. Lisa taught them how to use sonic disruptors scavenged from her old equipment, showing them how to amplify the forest's natural sounds to disorient intruders. The Cubs, including, played a crucial role in this effort, using their empathic abilities to sense disturbances in the environment and warn the others of approaching threats. But no amount of preparation could fully ease the tension hanging over the grove. Everyone knew the battle ahead would test them in ways they couldn't imagine. For Lisa, the stakes were personal. This wasn't just about protecting strangers. It was about making amends for the promise she hadn't kept. She owed it and to herself to see this through. Finally, the day arrived. Early in the morning, the distant hum of engines echoed through the forest, growing louder with each passing minute. The mining fleet descended through the canopy, massive ships cutting through the trees like blades. Their hulls gleamed menacingly in the sunlight, and the air vibrated with the sound of their sonic drills activating. Lisa stood at the edge of the grove by her side, watching as the invaders spread out across the forest floor. Dressed in sleek black armor and armed with energy rifles, the miners moved with cold efficiency, scanning the area for signs of resistance. Behind them, containment units hummed ominously, ready to capture any valuable resources or creatures they encountered. "Stay close," Lisa whispered to, gripping the handle of her disruptor tightly. "Whatever happens, don't let them take you." Nodded, his body trembling slightly but his gaze steady. "I won't leave you," he promised. The first wave of miners entered the grove cautiously, their weapons raised. Lisa signaled to the hidden among the trees, and within moments the forest came alive with noise. Sonic pulses reverberated through the air, disorienting the intruders and causing their equipment to malfunction. Birds screeched overhead, diving at the miners and forcing them to shield their faces. Vines lashed out like whips, tangling around legs and arms, slowing their advance. From above, the iron mule roared into view, its engine screaming as Dale performed a series of daring flybys. The ship's shadow loomed large over the clearing, casting the miners into temporary darkness. Laser fire erupted from the fleet's turrets, narrowly missing the freighter as Dale banked sharply and disappeared back into the clouds. Chaos reigned as they launched their counterattack. Using the confusion to their advantage, Lisa led a small group of defenders deeper into the forest, drawing the miners away from the grove. Stayed glued to her side, his keen senses alerting them to ambushes before they happened. Together, they lured the enemy into a series of traps designed to slow them down further. But even with Dale's distractions and the ingenuity, the fight was far from over. As the skirmish dragged on, Lisa found herself face to face with the leader of the mining operation, a tall, imposing man named Carter. His cold blue eyes locked onto hers as he stepped forward, his energy rifle aimed directly at her chest. "You're resourceful, I'll give you that," said, his voice dripping with disdain. "But you're fighting a losing battle. This planet belongs to us now." "It doesn't belong to anyone," Lisa shot back, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. "Least of all you." Smirked, clearly unimpressed. "Sentimental nonsense. Progress waits for no one." He gestured to his men, who began closing in around Lisa, and, "Stand down, or I'll make sure neither of you walks away from this." Lisa glanced down at, who stared defiantly at the miners despite the danger. She knew then that she couldn't give up, not now, not ever. These people had trusted her once, and she wasn't about to betray that trust again. Summoning every ounce of courage she had, Lisa raised her disruptor and fired, sending a pulse of energy rippling through the air. The blast knocked off balance, giving her and just enough time to slip away into the forest. Behind them, the grove erupted into chaos as they launched another wave of attacks, buying precious seconds for Lisa to regroup. As she ran, Lisa realized something important. This wasn't just about winning a battle. It was about proving to herself, and to everyone else, that promises mattered. Even ones made in the heat of the moment, even ones forgotten over time. Because sometimes, keeping a promise meant more than surviving. It meant finding a reason to keep fighting, no matter how impossible the odds seemed. And fight they would. The forest was alive with chaos. Explosions echoed through the trees, shaking loose leaves and sending flocks of birds spiraling into the sky. Lisa Morin ran as fast as her legs could carry her, close behind. Her heart pounded in her chest, each beat a reminder of the weight of what she had promised, not just to, but to herself. She couldn't let this place fall. Not again. Behind them, Carter shouted orders to his men, his voice sharp and commanding. "Find them. They can't have gone far." His words carried over the din of battle, slicing through the air like a blade. Lisa didn't need to look back to know they were being pursued. The crunch of boots on moss and the occasional crackle of energy weapons told her everything she needed to know. Darted ahead suddenly, his small body weaving effortlessly between tree trunks. "This way," he called, his voice urgent but steady. Lisa followed, trusting the cub's instincts. He seemed to know the forest better than anyone, and that gave her a sliver of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could outmaneuver the miners long enough to turn the tide. They reached a narrow ravine, its sides steep and slick with moss. At the bottom, a stream gurgled softly, its waters clear and cold. Leaped down without hesitation, landing lightly on the rocks below. Lisa hesitated for a moment before following, sliding awkwardly until she landed beside him. Her knees protested, but she ignored the pain, focusing instead on the sound of pursuit growing louder. "This is sacred ground," whispered, his ears twitching nervously. "The elders say it holds power." Lisa nodded, though she wasn't sure what he meant. All she knew was that they needed every advantage they could get. If this place truly held some kind of power, then it might be their only chance. Moments later, the first wave of miners appeared at the edge of the ravine. They paused, scanning the area cautiously. One of them pointed toward the stream, shouting something unintelligible to his comrades. Lisa tightened her grip on her disruptor, ready to fight if necessary. But before the miners could act, a low rumble began to emanate from the earth beneath their feet. "What's happening?" one of the miners yelled, his voice tinged with panic. Lisa looked at who stood perfectly still, his eyes closed as if listening to something far away. Then she understood. He wasn't just leading her to safety, he was calling on the forest itself. The tremors grew stronger, causing the ground to split open in jagged cracks. The miners stumbled backward, their weapons firing wildly as they tried to regain their footing. Lisa murmured, placing a hand on his shoulder. "What are you doing?" "They're scared," replied, his voice soft but firm. "Like me, like us. I'm showing them how it feels." As if in response to his words, the forest seemed to come alive around them. Trees swayed violently, their branches reaching out like arms trying to snatch the intruders. Birds screamed overhead, diving at the miners with sharp talons extended. Even the stream surged upward, its waters twisting into unnatural shapes that lashed out at anyone who came too close. The miners scrambled to retreat, their disciplined formation crumbling under the relentless assault. Some fell into the widening cracks in the ground, while others tripped over roots that seemed to grow faster than should have been possible. Amid the confusion, Lisa spotted Carter standing near the edge of the ravine, his expression grim but determined. In his hand, he held a small device, a planetary. "No," Lisa shouted, recognizing the threat immediately. She lunged forward but grabbed her arm, holding her back. "He's dangerous," warned, his voice trembling. "We can't stop him alone." But Lisa shook her head. "If we don't, he'll destroy everything." Summoning every ounce of courage she had, Lisa charged toward, dodging falling debris and bursts of energy fire. The hummed ominously in his hand, its red light pulsing steadily. When Lisa got close enough, she swung her disruptor like a club, striking across the arm. The device clattered to the ground and both of them dove for it simultaneously. For a moment they wrestled in the dirt, neither willing to give an inch. Was stronger, but Lisa fought with desperation born of knowing what was at stake. Finally, she managed to pin him down, snatching the away just as Dale's freighter roared overhead once more. The iron mule unleashed a barrage of sonic blasts, forcing the remaining miners to scatter. Breathing heavily, Lisa staggered to her feet, clutching the tightly. Glared up at her, his face twisted with rage. "You think you've won," he spat. "This planet will burn whether you like it or not." Lisa didn't respond. Instead, she turned to who watched her with wide, frightened eyes. "Can you help me reverse this?" she asked, holding up the device. "It's set to collapse the planet's core." Hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I can try, but I'll need your help." Together they focused on their minds working in tandem. Sympathic abilities amplified Lisa's understanding of the alien technology, allowing her to decipher its complex mechanisms. Slowly, painstakingly, they began altering the sequence, buying precious time for the planet to stabilize. Above them, the battle raged on. Dale continued his aerial assault, keeping the miners distracted while they launched another wave of attacks, and the elders chanted softly, their voices blending with the forest's natural rhythms to reinforce efforts. The grove itself seemed to pulse with energy, its ancient power flowing through every living thing. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, this red light faded, replaced by a steady green glow. Lisa exhaled sharply, collapsing to her knees in relief. "It's done," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We stopped it." Nuzzled against her arm, his body trembling with exhaustion. "You did it," he said softly. "You kept your promise." Lisa smiled faintly, though tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. "Not yet," she replied. "There's still work to do." When the dust settled, the mining fleet lay in ruins, its ships disabled and its crew either captured or fled. Carter was taken into custody, his arrogance replaced by a sullen silence. The gathered in the grove, their expressions a mix of gratitude and sorrow. Though they had won the battle, the scars left behind would take time to heal. That evening, Lisa sat by the fire with curled up beside her. The cub looked smaller somehow, as if the day's events had drained him of all his energy. But there was a quiet strength in his gaze, a resilience that reminded Lisa of why she had fought so hard. "You stayed," said finally, breaking the silence, "even when it was hard." "I told you I would," Lisa replied, stroking his fur gently, "and I meant it." Closed his eyes, a contented sigh escaping his lips. For the first time in what felt like forever, Lisa allowed herself to relax. The fight wasn't over, not completely, but they had bought themselves a chance. A chance to rebuild, to protect, and to make things right. As the flames danced in the night, casting flickering shadows across the grove, Lisa realized something important. Promises weren't just words, they were actions. And sometimes, keeping a promise meant more than simply returning. It meant staying, fighting, and believing in something greater than yourself. And that was exactly what she intended to do. The morning after the battle dawned bright and clear, as if the forest itself was celebrating its survival. The air smelled fresher than ever, carrying with it the faint scent of blooming flowers and damp earth. Birds chirped cheerfully in the trees, their songs mingling with the gentle rustle of leaves swaying in the breeze. It was hard to believe that just hours ago, the grove had been filled with chaos and destruction. Lisa Morin stood at the edge of the clearing, watching as they worked together to repair the damage left behind. Fallen branches were cleared away, broken vines mended, and scorched patches of moss carefully watered until they began to green again. Despite everything they had endured, there was a sense of calm determination among them, a quiet resilience that spoke volumes about their spirit. Trotted up to her, his fur still slightly ruffled but his eyes bright with energy. "They're happy," he said, looking around at the busy scene, "because you stayed." Lisa knelt down to meet his gaze, smiling softly. "I didn't do this alone. Everyone helped, the elders, your people, even Dale." "But you led us," insisted, his voice firm despite its youthful tone. "You made sure we didn't give up." Lisa hesitated, unsure how to respond. She hadn't thought of herself as a leader, just someone trying to make things right. But seeing the gratitude in his eyes and hearing the murmurs of thanks from the who passed by, she realized that maybe leadership wasn't about titles or authority. It was about standing alongside others when they needed you most. Later that day, Lisa joined and the elders near the stream where they often gathered to discuss important matters. The silver-haired woman greeted her warmly, though her expression remained thoughtful. "We owe you a great debt, Captain Morin," said, her voice steady yet kind. "Not only for what you did yesterday, but for returning to us at all." Lisa shook her head, feeling a lump rise in her throat. "You don't owe me anything. I'm the one who should be thanking you for trusting me, even after I broke my promise." Smiled gently, placing a hand on Lisa's shoulder. "Promises can be forgotten, but actions speak louder than words. You came back not because you had to, but because you chose to. That is what matters." The conversation turned to the future. With the mining fleet neutralized and Carter captured, the immediate threat to had been eliminated. But Lisa knew the galaxy wouldn't forget about this planet. Not entirely. The data she had recovered from the revealed disturbing plans by the rogue corporation to exploit not just, but other worlds like it. If those plans weren't exposed, more planets would face the same fate. "I'll take the evidence to the Galactic Council," Lisa said firmly. "They need to know what happened here, and they need to hear it from someone who saw it firsthand." The elders nodded approvingly, though their expressions were tinged with concern. "It will be dangerous," warned. "Those who seek profit above all else will not hesitate to silence you." "I understand the risks," Lisa replied, her voice unwavering. "But staying silent isn't an option, not anymore." As the days passed, preparations were made for Lisa's departure. Dale offered to ferry her back to the nearest spaceport, promising to keep an eye on her until she reached safety. Though part of Lisa dreaded leaving, even temporarily, she knew it was necessary. Protecting this world meant ensuring no one else could harm it. On the morning of her departure, the entire grove gathered to see her off. They lined the path leading to the clearing where the iron mule waited, their glowing eyes filled with gratitude and hope. Clung to her side, his small body trembling slightly. "Will you come back?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lisa knelt down, pulling him into a gentle hug. "Of course I will," she promised, her voice thick with emotion. "This is my home now too. No matter what happens, I won't leave you again." Buried his face in her chest, hugging her tightly before finally stepping back. "Be safe," he whispered, his ears drooping slightly. "I will," Lisa assured him, ruffling his fur one last time. Then, taking a deep breath, she turned and walked toward the waiting freighter. As she climbed aboard, she glanced back at the grove one final time. The sight of standing beside, surrounded by the people who had become her family, filled her with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. The journey to the spaceport was quiet, giving Lisa time to reflect on everything that had happened. Dale kept mostly to himself, occasionally glancing over at her with a look of quiet admiration. "You've got guts, Morin," he said finally, breaking the silence. "Not many folks would stick their necks out like that for strangers." "They're not strangers," Lisa replied simply. "They're my people now." When they reached the spaceport, Lisa transferred the encrypted data to a secure channel and sent it directly to the Galactic Council. She included detailed accounts of the mining operation, and the corporation's unethical practices. Within hours, news of the scandal spread across the galaxy, sparking outrage and calls for reform. Investigations were launched, and sanctions imposed on the rogue corporation responsible for the attack on. But Lisa didn't wait around to see the fallout. Instead, she returned to the planet that had claimed her heart. When she stepped off the iron mule once more, she was greeted by cheers and laughter. They celebrated her return as if welcoming a long-lost friend, and in many ways that's exactly what she was. In the weeks and months that followed, Lisa settled into life in the grove. She continued working alongside teaching them new skills while learning from their wisdom. Together, they strengthened the forest's defenses and built systems to monitor any potential threats. Slowly but surely began to heal, not just from the scars of battle, but from the wounds inflicted by greed and ignorance. One evening, as Lisa sat by the fire with curled up beside her, she realized something profound. For so long, she had defined herself by her career, as a scout captain, a soldier, a protector of humanity's interests. But now she understood that her true identity lay in the connections she forged, the promises she kept, and the lives she touched. "Do you think we'll always be safe here?" asked sleepily, breaking the silence. Lisa smiled, gazing up at the twin suns setting beyond the treetops. "Nothing in life is guaranteed, but as long as we stand together, we'll face whatever comes next." And with that, she leaned back against the soft moss, letting the warmth of the fire and the comforting weight of his presence lull her into a peaceful rest. For the first time in a long time, Lisa felt truly at home, not just in the grove but within herself. She had kept her promise, not just to but to the person she wanted to be. And that was enough.